Hi, this is my review of the Dragon's Crown manga by Udon Entertainment. I'll be very careful when I try to show you the images of this manga because my computer gets a bit choppy or stuttery, so I will try to show the images very slowly. As you can see, the both covers they create this composite image showing you all of the characters. Okay. So, a lot of you already know that this is based on a video game. The Dragon's Crown video game, it's a beat 'em up with some RPG elements. It was released for the PlayStation 3 and a PlayStation Vita, if I remember correctly. I hope they release it for the PC because a lot of people do not have a PlayStation 3 or a PlayStation Vita and they really need to enjoy it. In my opinion, it's a cool beat 'em up with those RPG elements, but there was a missed opportunity in my opinion. The characters are so well designed, charismatic, you remember them after you have played the game, especially because they are designed to look very sexy, exaggerated but sexy. You're going to remember these characters, and yes, it's going to be a bit of a shame if people do not get to experience this video game. Like I said, there is a missed opportunity because I always wanted the characters to interact with each other. When I played Dragon's Crown, I felt like it was the beat 'em up version of a tabletop role-playing game, or perhaps a Japanese role-playing game. And something that I really love about those forms of entertainment, or those formats rather, is that the interaction between the members of the party, it's so great. It produces memorable moments. But the characters are silent for most of the time. Besides some narrations and when they do certain things in the game, they are completely silent. They do not get those like those scenes or skits in the Tales series where the party starts to talk with the members of the party, start to share their backgrounds. Some of them get along better with other members of the party. Some other members clash with each other. So it's very entertaining. It adds a bit of flavor, a lot of flavor, I would say, rather, to the entire thing. But in the video games, you do not see that. I also wanted to know what would happen after they managed to complete their saga, or what happened before that, a bit before that. And in this manga, they do answer that. I am going to be reviewing this avoiding spoilers, but there are going to be some mild spoilers because otherwise I cannot tell you about what I liked and disliked of the manga. For the most part, I think it's excellent, but there are some things that I feel could have been a bit polished. And because of certain aspects of this manga, I am going to get a bit not exactly, sorry, philosophical, but a bit scientific, at least based on my own observations. Okay, let's talk about the art first, and I'm going to show you some images as I go through the review. But something that you perhaps immediately notice is that, like I said, there is a bit of exaggeration and a lot of sexiness as well. It's obvious for most of you that still go out of the house. You know that there are men and women with these sorts of physics, and this is not a man, by the way, this is a dwarf. This is at least like the fantasy species, the dwarf, the typical dwarf you see in fantasy games. So you can say that he has those huge arms that kind of look like the torso of someone, the size of someone's torso, because it's not a human character. But in the case of the Amazon, well, that's still doable to a certain extent. She's stoned or ripped and still looks quite sexy. She has that curviness to her. In the case of the wizard, I think he has one of the more normal bodies. He's still pretty ripped. There are some images showing his chest, and he looks very good shape, good physique. This is eye candy for both men and women. If you like women, if you like men, you're going to find a lot of sexy images here. Let's take a look at the other one. And a sorceress, also quite well endowed. You have the elf. This is not, in my opinion, well, at least because of what is revealed in this manga, she's probably very young because she looks a lot more delicate, or how would you say it, dainty, when compared to other elves. And in the back you have the fighter. He's, yes, almost, he has this body that you would see in the body of Kenshiro of Fist of the North Star. Very, not only very well defined in musculature, but also he's quite big. So yes, I think there is a lot of eye candy for everyone. Mm. Now, when it comes to the panels and the way that they describe the story, for the most part, they do a great job. But I have heard some people, for example, I have, how would you say in English, lent? Or, well, someone borrowed these books so that they could read them, and this manga. And that person complained, my friend complained that sometimes he didn't like find the sequence when it comes to the action scenes. Some of the panels are a bit chaotic. In my case, I didn't find the panels to be that chaotic, but for someone who perhaps is not very experienced in these things, because in the case of my friend, he is not exactly into manga, but he's into fantasy role-playing games, so that's why he wanted to read the story. But, well, let me look for some chaotic images. Some pretty sexy things here. For example, well, in the case of the guys, you have, if you like men, here's, I think you will enjoy this this guy here, the fighter. Because he has a handsome face and an impressive body. I'm not into guys, but I think that women will find him very attractive. That's just my opinion. If you think the fighter is sexy, let me know in the comment section below. You have some full color images throughout the book, not many of them. Let's see if I can show them to you. You have one here against the dragon. A really sexy but exaggerated image of the Amazon. Now let's see if I can find, wow, just take a look at these images. This is the presentation, the first appearance of the Amazon. They are quite suggestive. There are some even more suggestive panels later on. The characters look really beautiful. I still do not know. I think I like all of the designs, especially because they have that moe aesthetic to them. You have men and women that are very muscular and fit and toned, but they have these like cute or handsome faces. So I really like the way that they look. Let's see some chaotic images over somewhere. Ah, yes, here it is. This is the battle against the Harpy, the first boss of the game, if I remember correctly. Some people could think, oh, there are so many spell effects, and you see, you cannot follow the sequence. Which panel should I look at first? But aside from my friend and some comments that I read online, like about a year ago, I don't think the panels were that difficult to go through. Okay. Now let's talk about how well the story translates to this manga. Because it's a beat 'em up game, you cannot expect the manga to follow the exact storyline, because the game itself, it only has a few cutscenes explaining things. But most of the time you're going to be moving, it's a side scroller, you're going to be moving from one side to another as you are fighting hordes of enemies, obtaining some things along the way. There are treasure chests and such, and then you fight the enemy boss. You finish the adventure, you go back to town, you level up a bit, and you go to the next level. Repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. because combat is quite satisfying. It's not, well, I guess for some people it can feel a bit repetitive, but for the most part you have all of these different powers and abilities. So the fun of the game, the entertaining bits, have to do with using all of those special abilities, powers. When you play online with others or in your house with a friend, you also try to create these synergies that, oh, the fighter is going to draw the attention of all of the enemies, you know, the typical um, strategies and tactics, while the wizard and the sorceress are going to be doing this and that. So it's that sort of gameplay. Mm, so the manga focuses on some very important things, in my opinion. First, it provides the background of the different heroes. For example, here you have the fighter making his oath that he's going to fight evil and he's going to protect people. So you have these presentations. I already showed to you the Amazon. You have the wizard over here. There is a somewhat of a subtle spoiler when he talks to this. What was her designation? Because here you don't have names. You have party role designations. I think she was the enchantress, and they talk a bit about what is going on. That there is some great evil in this realm, and that the wizard is looking for a cure because his sister is ill. And here you have, of course, the sorceress. She's like the major sex appeal character of the entire manga and the video game, if you ask me. Just take a look at her. Like I said, there are some very well endowed women out there, but here they manage to do everything that they can to draw your attention towards certain attributes. Then you have the presentation of the elf. The elf, where she? Here she is. Okay, hopefully it won't get too choppy when I show you these images. And then we have the dwarf. Of course, it's a dwarf, so you expect the dwarf to be drinking at a tavern, because for dwarves, beer are kind of like water. They have these iron stomachs and metabolisms, or who knows what. So when it comes to the beer and wine, if it's produced by humans, it's going to be very watery, almost like, yes, it has no bite to it, no kick. So they drink beer like there was no tomorrow. I think they rushed the encounter between the characters a bit. They do not give you a reason as to why they join up. Like I said, I'm going to I'm going to attempt my best at keeping this spoiler free. Look at this. This is a really nice image of the Amazon and the elf. So when it comes to let's see if I can get that into focus. Okay. When it comes to the heroes meeting up, it's a bit rushed. Quite honestly, it's they just tell you the background of the different characters, and then they meet up at the tavern. That's it. They don't tell you like, oh, this character was the friend of this other character, or perhaps this character was the cousin of this other character. They just meet up, just like that. Because they wanted to be adventurers, they need to be approved by the Adventurers Guild. So it's pretty cliche, but it still serves as as the purpose or the excuse to have adventures between the characters. They are going to be taking on most of the enemies and missions in the video game. I'm telling you, just take a look at this. I don't know if you can appreciate it. That's actually a special attack of the Amazon in the video game. So, but in some cases, there is a rush that they want. It almost feels like they gave the drawer, the artist, a deadline, and the writer as well. I don't know if it's the same person, because it says here, let's see if I can find, original concept by Atlus, manga by Justan, but let's see if we can find the art. Manga is Justan, so this must be both the writer and the illustrator, I imagine, the artist. So in some cases they could have spent a bit more time in some of the missions. The first volume, it's where you see more work put into it. You see these different quests and storylines, and you see the interactions between the adventurers, how they are taking on different hazards and traps and monsters. This feels a lot more like a proper role-playing game than a beat 'em up. In the video game, it's more like just like your typical beat 'em up, Final Fight, King of Dragons, etc. But here you do feel that sense of exploration. Sometimes they have to be very stealthy. They are going to be activating traps. There's going to be a lot of fan service, as you have seen so far. Usually, most of the time, the women are going to be shown in very compromising situations, because, you know, we as men, we love to see women in vulnerable positions, because it triggers that primitive need of like, oh, vulnerable women, smash, you know. And in the case of the guys, they usually look very, although they will get into trouble and they will end up saved or rescued by women, for the when it comes to the angles, the illustrations, they look very imposing, like, you know, potent, you know, very sexy. Here I remember an interesting detail about this when I saw this image. You have the sorceress doing her sexy witch pose. The interesting thing is that a lot of people do not know where that myth, perhaps you could even say a sort of meme, came from the witch, the typical witch riding her broom. And the thing is that they weren't necessarily witches. Many of you know that the church had its iron grip back then. It still has in some places nowadays, but back then it has such a terrible iron maiden grip over the entire world. And they saw witches as competition. Not the Wiccans of today, they are also religious. Witch is basically it's based on the words vice, it's an European term, or vitki. It means a wise person, wise one. So a witch was basically someone who knew many things about herbs, about science, medicine, spirituality, astrology, astronomy. So when they saw those people, they were a threat because they want to keep the world in ignorance, the dark ages, you know. So they started to call everyone a witch. And there were some so-called witches that were drug addicts. There were junkies. They had this sort of drug, but this drug could basically destroy your digestive system if you took it like that, orally. So what they did, and this is no joke, you can look for it in the internet, there is this channel, Summoning Spirits, channeling spirits, a channel called Channeling Spirits. They actually have a video about witches, and they also confirm that as a historical date information, that they rubbed this drug on wooden sticks, sometimes perhaps even brooms, and they rubbed their places, they rubbed their their vagina, they rubbed that on their genitals, and that's how they got high. They were flying in their own minds. So that's where that pose of the witch riding the broom came from. So like I said, they do take some time when it comes to some of the quests and missions, but when it comes to volume 2, they really start to rush things. Sometimes non-player characters, the allies that they meet along the way, are the ones taking down some major enemies that you defeat in the game. So it does feel quite rushed. That's one of the things that I didn't like I wish that all of the quests and the missions have been given proper care. But then again, mm, that would have required 3 volumes. So, like I said, maybe it was within the budget, and this was the best that they could do. hmm I really like some of the tag team combos, so to speak, or the synergies between some of the characters. Perhaps my favorite uh, team within the members of the party is the fighter and the Amazon. Just look at them right here when they are facing the Harpy and against several enemies, because they are the frontliners of the group. They are always going to be taking on the enemies. Let me see if I can adjust my hair a bit. It's kind of like all over my head, my face. This is what happens when you train and you do not uh, comb your hair. Okay. So, for those of you that do not know, I'm a martial artist. So yes, I really like their combination, the way that they fight together. When it comes to ranged attacks, you're going to have that combination of wizard and sorceress. But here is the thing that I really like and dislike about the interactions between the party members. This is a really nice image. Let me show it to you. Okay. Mm, in some cases, you're going to love the interactions. In the case of the dwarf, he's like the perv of the group, sort of like a comedy relief. He does a lot of silly things. When it comes down to defeating the enemies, he's a dwarf, so he's incredibly tough and strong. He's kind of like mini Viking. He has like these Thor hammers, and he starts to fight like that. But he's always trying to just like get naughty with the female characters, and he is usually punished by the elf because, of course, elves do not like the dwarves. So the elf is always trying to punish the dwarf because of his lewd behavior. Mm, when it comes to the interactions, like I said, there are some things that do not work, but I see why they handled it like that. In terms of, I always thought, are there going to be like, there going to be some sort of, is there going to be romance? But you only have like some minor hints, and I don't think that the characters that are implied to be in a sort of, not a relationship but a platonic relationship, they do not set it in stone. Because I think they did this because of the people that have their ships, like the typical otaku way of speaking, that you're shipping this couple. And if they said that something like, oh well, you know what, this character is going to end up with this character and that's it, I think they would have gotten a bit angry, because there are a lot of people that are into fan fiction, or they just like to look at the stories and they kind of like daydream their favorite couples. But you will not find a single official couple or coupling in this story. I was going to show you a really sexy image, but I think that's a spoiler. Really sexy. Okay, this one, I don't think this is a spoiler, and wow, they really did a number with this character, the dark elf. Just look at her. Incredibly sexy, beautiful looking face, and smoking hot body. Amazing. I really like that moe design. The pretty or handsome face with a sexy body. So yes, I think some people may end up a bit disappointed. These action scenes look amazing. You look at the fight against the Minotaur. It's so intense. Like I said, some people may find it a bit chaotic, but you really feel the weight of the Minotaur, the blows. You can really tell that all of the characters in the party, they get along, even those that clash a bit. They care for each other. When they take damage, they have these really intense expressions like, no, fighter, And you have even some how would you call it? Uh, like a bromance between bros. Like you see, there is even like this a sort of meme or comedic element that the sorceress is kind of like imagine. She likes to imagine guy on guy situations, and even though it's not like that in the book, she loves to. There is a like a funny panel where she's looking at these two male characters, and she's kind of like has this like a naughty expression that she's already picturing something in her mind. So all the characters care about each other. They are protecting each other. They work well together. But like I said, when it comes to the couples, the the couple that feels a bit more strongly hinted at in the book, in the manga, they are not compatible, in my opinion, physically and mentally. I could just imagine them having a child with some sort of deformity because of the difference of structures. Or who knows, maybe it's because I'm going to spoil it if I give more details, but maybe it's because in a if more time passes, maybe that character will develop. Let's put it like that. Maybe she's kind of like in well, that's I have really have to spoil this because it's related to what something that I don't like. I'm just going to say one of the members of that couple, the elf. The elf is kind of hinted that she likes someone, and perhaps that other member of the party likes her back. And yeah, like I said, physically and mentally, maybe there is a bit of chemistry, just a bit, mentally speaking, but physically, there are some other hints you could say, oh, well, but remember that in panel number, who knows what, there is this thing that this male character said to this other female character, and maybe, yes, you could consider that they were also shipping that couple. But that's one of the things that were a bit disappointing to me at the end of the story. I thought that a couple of characters were going to end up together, but they do not give you any further hints. And like I said, maybe that's just me being a romantic, but I would have loved to see two of the characters that just worked so well together. What they said, their like how you call it, like their comebacks and their interactions, the way that they fought together. Oh look, this looks amazing! An incredible image of the dwarf with his stone body when he, in a moment of emergency. Now, maybe there are some of you that do not know anything about Dragon's Crown. I'm just going to give you the basic summary of the story without spoiling things. The adventurers are looking for fame and glory and fortune and honor. Each one has his or her own reasons for adventuring. They actually share those reasons. Some of them are a bit, well, I won't say it like a silly thing, but they look a bit less important. For example, I already told you that the fighter is questing to protect people and defeat evil, so that's incredibly admirable. But then this other character, and I'm going to save that spoiler, it's a very, if not a superficial reason, almost like a whimsical reason. And they make some jokes about that. So they're all looking to obtain some gold, to improve themselves as adventurers. But later on, they start to see that their quests are related to some sort of plot, some sort of, I know YouTube doesn't like this word, but some sort of conspiracy. And they start to see that all of this is related to a major change in the kingdom, related to the inability of certain members of the nobility to act. There is more than meets the eye. There seems to be some sort of group pulling the strings, just like in real life. So that's what I can tell you about the story without spoiling things. Because it's called Dragon Crown, there is a powerful item, which is a crown, that has to do something with a dragon. So if you wanted a big showdown with a dragon, you won't be disappointed. There is a lot of comedy as well. Some moments of despair, the death of some, well, to avoid spoiling things, there is going to be death. Those of you that have already played the game know that the main characters, well, they have certain plot armor, so to speak. But yes, overall, I really recommend the manga. Although you may feel that it's lacking in some... Wow, just another sexy image. Just take a look at this. What do you even think when you look at this image? You know exactly the situation that it implies when she's doing that. So amazing. These character designs, they're just incredible. And like I said, there's eye candy for everyone. Just like take a look at this barbarian. Although his body is, it's a bit, well, maybe some women or will find this sexy. But yes, he kind of looks like the Incredible Hulk. So get this one for the eye candy, for the sense of exploration, going into those dungeons, those haunted sites and the wilderness. And they also have this quirk or characteristic from the game that they are telling you as if you are experiencing the adventure. For example, they tell you like, oh, you have been captured and taken to the tower. So they like break the fourth wall and speak to you as if you're actually controlling the player characters. So that's a nice detail. I also like it how they present some background information about some of the characters. I wish they could have extended the introductory scenes for some of the characters and given definitely a lot more information when it comes to the ending. The ending felt a bit sad, just because, like I said, they didn't tell you, you know what, this character ended up with this other character, or these two characters became friends, or these two other characters went on an adventure. And they could have talked about that, but they just show you like this is what the characters did after the quest, and then they meet up briefly, and that's it. And like I said, there are still many other things that happen. I am not going to spoil those things. So I would recommend that you get the Dragon's Crown manga. Get both volumes. If you get only one, it's not going to be enough. If someone starts reading by volume 2, I don't think the story is going to be too difficult to pick up to understand the general proceedings of things, of the plot lines and the story overall. But you definitely want to read both volumes. So the strongest aspects of this manga, definitely the eye candy, the interaction between the members of the party, some nods to the video game. You will recognize some of the moves, like when the fighter is kind of like provoking the enemy, the special attacks like I showed you to you of the Amazon, like attacking an enemy with her butt. The weakest part of this manga, like I said, is that some of the relationships could have been developed further. When it comes to the background of each of the characters, the way that they meet up, they decide to work together. Because just think about it like this, you imagine that you are going to go on a dangerous journey and you go into some random tavern. Are you just going to trust the first people that you meet there? Of course not. So they really needed the author, in my opinion. It would have been better if some research concerning plot hooks in tabletop role-playing games and reasons as to why the party gets together, that would have helped this structuring of the initial parts of the manga a lot. Because otherwise they're kind of like, are you an adventurer? Yes. Oh, I'm an adventurer too. So am I. Let's get together. You don't even know these people. And you have different species. You have the dwarf, the elf. You have people from different parts. The Amazon is obviously from a very different part when compared to the sorceress in the wizard and the fighter. That's a really cool thing. You will get to see the characters, some of them, experiencing life when they are not wearing their adventuring gear. So you get a bit of world building or world structuring. You see those characters interacting with other people that are not adventurers. So yes, I highly recommend it, even though it had a certain like a sour taste in my mouth at the end because of those things that I criticized. I still recommend that you get the Dragon's Crown manga. But definitely, if you want a reason for it, definitely get it for the eye candy. If you like women, if you like men, and you want to see some lewd art, you're going to love this. Oh, here's an image of the. I don't think I showed this image to you of um, the wizard. You can see he's very fit under his robes. Could I show you this image? Well, I think so because she's covering her. Can I actually show this to you? Just to be certain, I'm going to kind of like cover it a bit. Well, her hair. This is a mermaid. Her hair is covering her nipples, so this is still not as lewd as it could get. So yes, definitely get it for the eye candy if you're looking for that. But the battles are awesome and the interactions and all of that. Well, thank you for watching this review. It was somewhat challenging for me to do it because 2 volumes and avoiding spoilers and trying to showcase all of the art. I still hope that you found this video informative and perhaps entertaining. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you who have been supporting the channel by sending drive-thru RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you and see you later.